such a joy to be able to welcome to our congregation a rabbi who had a lot to do with my own journey to the rabbinate. So if you like me, thank him. If not, curse him. When I was growing up in, as you all know, I talk about it all the time, Omaha, Nebraska, my mother, of blessed memory, was from El Dorado, Kansas, and her family later moved to the big city, Wichita. Then they moved to the really big city, Kansas City. And so on many Jewish holidays, we would drive from Omaha to Kansas City to be with family, and we would go to B'nai Yehuda, Congregation B'nai Yehuda, whose senior rabbi was Michael Zedek. And when I was a kid, he was one of the mentors, one of those people who taught me a great deal of Torah and was always just such an inspiring person to be around. We reconnected over the last few years, and now Rabbi Zedek has family here in Los Angeles, so hopefully we'll see lots more of him. I interviewed him on my podcast about his book around miracles, which he's going to mention. Also, he has a brand new kids book, and he said, I'm going to be in town. And I said, would you please come and share some words of Torah? So Rabbi Michael Zedek, thank you so much for being with us.
No, thank you. And I'm delighted to be here. Of course, I'm delighted to be just about anywhere. But you know, anybody else does stuff like public speaking? So at no additional charge, and I promise this should not count as my time. Rabbi Zweiback has given me 10 minutes, which of course means he believes in miracles, because I'm a rabbi, right? But you can use this without attribution. Of all the introductions I've ever received, that's the most recent. Much more significantly, to have the thought that I had anything to do with your senior rabbi becoming a rabbi suggests to me that maybe I had a few moments of some successful impact influence. And I mean that as a compliment to you and to this amazing community. Liam, where are you? Is Liam still here? Liam, I need you and your sister, because Liam now has a Hebrew name, and his Hebrew name is Zedek, right? Do you know what my Hebrew name is? My last name is Zedek. We now have something in common, and you have something with your sister. This is my brand new book, People Are Like. Look, there's your name right on there, Zedek. Now, I want to give this a copy to you guys if you'll promise to share it, okay? Now, just an FYI, I wouldn't mind if you bought it. Not you, not you. Not you. No. I'm much more serious. Get okay. Go back with family. Come on. But my point being, someone met the cost of the entire publication, so all proceeds will go to benefit scholarships for needy kids. So I'm really excited about that aspect. People are like, it's 9 stories, wonderful illustrations, etc. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about tonight, which is taking miracles seriously, a journey to everyday spirituality. The subject of, I never thought I'd say this, my first book. Ooh. So, here we are in greater Los Angeles, the TV capital of the world, and I'm going to start in that direction. How many of you remember Mr. Ed? Oh, yeah. So for those who don't, Mr. Ed was a talking horse, right? I do very few impressions, but here we go. Wilbur. And when Mr. Ed introduces himself to Wilbur, Wilbur's properly nonplussed, right? Because it's not in our experience for horses to talk, let alone have the best lines in classic situation comedies. But the Hebrew Bible has an exact equivalent, Balaam and his talking jackass, where this pagan, identified as a prophet no less, has a conversation with a donkey as though it were perfectly normal, everyday kind of thing. No shock, no surprise. Oh, let's have a little conversation. Probably suggesting who is the real jerk here. But more significantly, and I mean this, every time in the Hebrew Bible what you or I would call a miracle occurs, no one draws what would obviously be the correct lesson, which just might be the lesson. Let me try to elaborate and explain. The text says it takes 10 plagues to get the children of Israel out of Egypt, right? Although you may be aware, rabbinic traditions invents thousands, which is their way of saying, watch out. Let's watch out. 10 plagues. Everything's fine, right? The Israelites go, Yul Brynner lets them out. That's a reference that only a few of us will remember. And Moses and the children of Israel are stuck at Yam Suf. not translated incorrectly, Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds. We used to call it the Isthmus of Suez. There is no more Isthmus of Suez. That's where you build a canal, a low-lying, swampy area. The Israelites are there, and Pharaoh changes his mind. Right? Forget about the firstborn horses, they're all dead. Forget about all the firstborn officers, they're all dead. But let's not get details and get in the way of a good story. The Israelites see the dust cloud of the Egyptian tanks, that's what chariots are in the ancient world, coming to get them, and what do? They panic. Why did you bring us out here to die? Weren't there enough graves in Egypt? I'm talking this fast because, first of all, I'm from Brooklyn. By the way, partial score 3. Second, 10 minutes. Oh, my God. So they're going to say this over and over again. Why did you bring us out here to die? Weren't there enough graves in Egypt? Why don't they say, we got God playing for our team? Why don't these stupid Egyptians get it? Well, Moses quiets their panic. Be still and see the workings of, this is my best word, Lord. And, as you know, the sea splits and they walk through on dry ground. Now, every time, there's always a hint or a clue, a telltale. There ought to be mud. No mud? All right, 2 miracles, big deal. They walk through on dry ground. Now, if it is 3 million people, bad translation, it would take several weeks for 3 million people to walk through. But the pattern is the point. The Egyptian chariots are held back by what? A fiery whirlwind, right? The Israelites pass through, the whirlwind disappears, you're an Egyptian chariot driver. You're going to drive in there? You got to be out of your freaking mind, right? But the text says they do, and push, bye-bye. Although, again, another hint or clue. The text says very clearly, then the children of Israel beheld Mitzrayim dead on the shores of the sea. Mitzrayim is not Egyptians. Mitzrayim is Egypt, dead on the shores of the sea. But here's where it really gets marvelous. Oz. Then they had emunah in God and in Moses, God's servant. Emunah is usually translated faith. It means confidence. They had confidence in God until the next chapter. We've got no water. Why'd you bring us out here to die? Weren't there enough graves in Egypt? And as you know, they split the rock and they get water. But things are fine. Nah, we've got no food. In Egypt, we had leeks and onions and garlics. Why did you bring us out here to die? And they get manna. Do anybody know why they called it manna? The text tells us, by the way. I'll tell you. They looked at it and said, manhu, which is archaic Hebrew for, what is it? It's got to be the Hebrew Bible's attempt at humor, even as I'm attempting a little bit of it now, with some modest success, I hope, eventually. That said, the pattern is the point. They're sick and tired of manna. We've cooked it every way we can. We want meat. Next day, the camp is surrounded by, I'm from Brooklyn originally, boids. For those who don't know, it's birds. Okay. Now, this is a miracle, by the way, that happens every single year in the Sinai. It's one of the world's great natural bird flyways. They've been flying nonstop over the Mediterranean. They are pooped. So, everything's fine. They get to Mount Sinai. And in the single greatest personal appearance in all of human history, would have been better than any Taylor Swift concert, what happens? God is experienced by all. Moses was up on the mountain, and they build a golden calf. And Taka, they say to this golden calf that they had just made, this is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Are they Meshuggah? What's going on here? Either these are the dumbest people to ever walk the face of the earth, or there's a great deal more going on here than is normally understood if you take the text literally, which is insufficient to its meanings. Notice I didn't say meaning, meanings. For instance, Martin Luther King Jr.'s understanding, these stories, very important word, stories, demonstrate that it is easier to get the slaves out of Egypt than to get Egypt out of the slaves. That is always true, whether it's a movement for a people's liberation or an individual's embrace of freedom. We are free before we will accept or take responsibility to be in charge of our own lives. Happy to elaborate, but not tonight. Now, what has all this got to do with us? In part, it's the following. We're all dualists. We divide our experience into two categories, ordinary and extraordinary. What do we do with the extraordinary? We have no choice. It slaps us across the face and says, pay attention. And what do we do with the ordinary? That's equally true. We take it for granted. If we were to take the ordinary for granted less, our lives would be more filled with life. Commercial for the book, Taking Miracles Seriously. The book is filled with suggestions of how to take the ordinary for granted less. Put it differently, in the great words of one of the most remarkable theologians of the previous century, his name was Albert Einstein. You may have heard of him. He was not a bad physicist either. He said, there are two ways to live. The first is as though nothing is a miracle. The second is as though everything is a miracle. I am absolutely convinced it is possible to get closer to that second way. I don't think anybody can live on the mountaintop all the time, but we can certainly have more of it. And by the way, Judaism's expertise is how do you take the ordinary and recognize the miraculous in it, or to put it in poetic form. Before I became a rabbi, I had a brief stint as a teacher of English and writing. Don't hold this against me. At Syracuse University. Boo, hiss. All right. Poem. Earth's crammed with heaven. Every bush is afire with God, but only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit round and pluck blackberries. In short, there are burning bushes scattered randomly through every day, and what do? We ignore them. Could we ignore them less? And with that in mind, and with a pledge to get us to the Oneg Shabbat as soon as possible, I want to make two suggestions, and we'll pretend I'm done. Okay? Thank you, Yoshi. One, true story. Anybody ever been to Rancho La Puerta in Tecate, Mexico? Yeah. I have a wonderful, but I've been teaching there for a number of years. It's just an exquisite place, amazing. It's the oldest spirituality retreat center in North America. By the way, it's in Tecate, Mexico, because the two co-founders were Jewish, and one of them was a Romanian or Hungarian, it depends on the story, refugee. World War I, couldn't get into the United States because we didn't want that kind here, just as we seem to have returned to a certain theme every so often, alas. So they're in Tecate, Mexico. And what are the people who work there? Remember Phyllis Pilgrim? Phyllis and her mother were imprisoned in a Japanese prisoner of war camp in Indonesia during World War II. 80% of the fellow inmates didn't survive. They starved to death. Her mother, who lived into her 90s, was a marvel. Phyllis, all of us know people who suffer we'll call it a metaphorical hangnail, and the whole world stinks. This woman suffered extraordinary challenges, and she thought life was worth the gamble and embraced it for all her years. Her daughter, what was your secret? How explain? Her mother offered these three things, and since I'm a rabbi, I've added a fourth. Every day of my imprisonment and every day thereafter, I would try to do three things. One, to hear something beautiful. Two, to say something beautiful. Three, to see something beautiful. And because I'm a rabbi, and because Judaism insists, I've added to do something beautiful. Every night before I attempt to sleep, I'm at that age and stage where it's no longer an obvious thing that you're going to sleep. Did I see, hear, say, and do something beautiful? If the answer to any one of those questions is no, I have to get up. Because my soul, S-O-U-L work for the day, isn't finished. I promise you, if you do it, you'll find more and more of it. The paradox is just doing it, you'll discover those burning bushes scattered randomly that you helped recognize in yourself and for others. Last little item. This is the first Shabbat since the hostages were returned, the living hostages. Some of you, if you remember the newscast, over and over again, in the background, I didn't hear any of the reporters comment. Praised are you, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to this special moment. Many years ago, 1974, I had just graduated from seminary. I know I don't look it. And I, quote unquote, knew more than I was ever going to know, right? Because that's what students often think. I would study once a week with a wonderful retired rabbi who happened to be blind. I would read Midrash to him and we would study together. He said to me after we were done our hour reading, that's when the real learning began. He said to me, Michael, when do you say the Shehechianu prayer? And he said, and I said, because I knew it. When you're doing something the first time or the first time in season. First time. You've never done it before? Okay, Shehechianu. First time in season, first night of Hanukkah, but not the second night, because it's not the first time in season. He said, you're wrong. What do you mean wrong? I just got out of seminary. So, and then he said a Talmudic phrase. He said, let your ears hear what your mouth has spoken. Let your ears hear what your mouth has spoken. And then what he said next changed my life. He said, Michael, when are you not doing something for the first time? The first time. Every time is a once in an infinity time. Ever since, right back here, Rabbi Gershon had us. I can't get through one before it's time for the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Now, I'll admit to you, there are times when it's just background noise. But there are moments when it's breakthrough, and I'm walking on holy ground. And I wouldn't have any problem if you guys might want to walk on that ground as well, because it makes life an adventure that is filled with soulfulness and soul and malo kol haaretz kavodo. The fullness of the whole world is filled with God's presence. I got one more second? Kavodo. How would you translate it?
Well, maybe dignity or honor, or yeah.
That's all correct in terms of contemporary Hebrew. It comes from the Hebrew word kabed, which is the Hebrew word for the liver, as in the organ of the body. Second heaviest organ in the body. The heaviest organ is the skin. So why in the heck would kavodo come from liver? Gives a different meaning to the whole notion of chopped liver. Here's what I think is the fullness of the whole earth is filled with sacred presence, sacred heaviness. We just need to be alert and aware. Or to put it another way, and this I promise I'm going to pretend to stop. There's holiness all around us. There's a sacred dimension in us. Let's get to work, because there's work to do, and we're never done with that job of making a soul fulfillment. Thank you so much, and thank you.